Okay, we are live. This is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined today by a very special guest, Mr. David, is it Weisenhunt?
Weisenhunt.
Weisenhunt. How are you, David?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just getting things done.
Where are you calling us from?
Spokane, Washington.
Oh, Spokane, Washington. Believe it or not, I've actually spent some time in Spokane, Washington. I was up there working right after college on a job with an accounting firm that I worked for. And every day during lunch, the guy that I was working with from Spokane, we went fishing. Hey, David, are you having me play back on another device? Because we're getting some
Uh,
reverb.
yeah, it's my TV. I was trying to mute it.
Okay. Are we muted?
Yep.
Okay. So what's going on with CPS in Spokane, Washington?
Well, my daughter's case is actually in Aberdeen. Is where her worker's at. I went and I got her worker's name the other day. So I've been doing a lot of research to find out where my daughter's at and stuff like that. While I'm still filling out the guardianship papers.
What do you mean, the guardianship papers?
I'm filing for guardianship to get my daughter. Um, so,
Well, wait a minute. Is this a CPS case?
well, it is a CPS case because she's in foster care since she was taken away from my ex-in-laws, who we did open adoption with and stuff like that.
Oh, I see.
And they've notified everyone in the family twice when she was removed from them. And since then, some of us have asked to, my twin had asked her to be placed with my aunt and uncle, and they denied. And then so when I got the caseworker's number the other day, um, I had my aunt call, and she talked with her. I was in the house at the time when my aunt was talking with the CPS caseworker on my daughter's case. And CPS workers, they like to try to blow smoke up everyone's butt, saying that they can't, after certain things, can't place her with relatives when she wants to be with my aunt and uncle and my cousin Natasha and stuff like that. Um, so we're all filling out guardianship paperwork to get her. I've also watched some CPS webinars from Washington State, um, some other things, and some House bills that have passed and have interacted with what they're supposed to now be doing. And so, yeah, been doing a lot of research, pulling out House bills and for Washington State. You got House Bill 1747 that states certain things, and the House Bill 1227 that just became active and into law on the 1st of July of this year
And
about
what does it
relative
say?
placement.
What does it say?
And it says that for each House bill, so for permanency, they're supposed to go with relative placement and keep families together more than putting them in stranger foster care. So, but the departments don't always like to follow these guidelines. So, so in our defense, we're filing guardianship papers to get Selena. Um, so, so yeah, it's just a lot of paperwork and research and
Well, let's back up a second. Your relatives adopted the child from a CPS case?
okay. No, my ex in laws, we did third party custody and open adoption. Okay.
Okay. Is that without CPS or with
Yeah,
CPS
that
involved?
was without CPS involvement,
Okay. And now
and then
the
they
in-laws, what they
lost
just,
her.
how did they lose her?
Well, she was starting to act out because when we turned 13,
So
so
she's
she
not with her
started,
parents?
yeah, so she started acting out with, you know, her grandparents who are also her adopted parents, because, grandma and grandpa became mom and dad basically. And then, so she was acting out, and then they said they couldn't handle her, so the CPS took her and placed her in a one place that's supposed to help uh, counsel them and stuff like that to get them to calm down. And then she went from there to foster home, then a couple of foster homes, and then she was placed back with my ex-in-laws for a little bit, and then my family received a second letter when my daughter was removed again from their care. So it's like, and then she's been in like several different foster homes for the last going on 5 years now. And the last place when she talked to me was back when she was in Walla Walla for a week, that we were communicating. The first time I talked to you was when we started chatting, my daughter. And then she was moved from that home. And so now where she's at, I don't know. So this is why, with doing more research and filling out these paperwork, um, well, it says for the people that need to be served. That's the problem. There is, it's like other than serving the CPS worker themselves, because we know the CPS worker's name on the case, but we don't know which bus home this and that. And so we're trying to get that information right now. So
Well, if she's in a foster home, that means CPS is back involved.
she's
And
been in several bus homes the last few months, last almost 5 years.
how old is she now? 13, 14?
She's 16.
She's 16 now. Do you have any contact with her?
Other than when she was in Walla Walla, in that bus home Walla Walla back in from June 24th through June. Go back to my calendar here. Okay, so I talked with her June 24th through June 28th, 29th, and then she was moved to 29th from that foster home in Walla Walla. But her caseworker is in Aberdeen. So where she's at now, I have no idea.
Did she try to reach out to you or anything?
Not since she was moved from the Walla Walla home. She hasn't. So I don't know whether she's in a hospital setting because they were trying to put her in a mental hospital, like I told you last time. So I don't know whether she's in that setting now because none of my family members have heard from her. Neither has my ex-wife. So who she talks to quite a bit, but she hasn't talked to since talked to her back on the 28th of June. So I mean, it's been, yeah.
What have you filed anything yet?
We have not filed any paperwork yet. We are still getting, like I said, getting it filled out. I mean, I still got declaration and explaining reason for minor guardianship still to finish filling out. And then we've got the motion for immediate order. I've got that pretty much all filled out there. And then I've got order of emergency guardianship pretty much almost all filled out. Some questions trying to figure out how I fill that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then that residential schedule, which I don't know if we need to even fill that out or not, because me being the biological father, trying to get guardianship of my own daughter. So I don't know if I need to fill out the residential schedule or not.
You know, you and I talked before a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that you should do is you should try to find a lawyer in your
Oh,
area where
I've
you
been
live?
trying to, and leaving messages for like, gotten several different lawyers left messages, called the bar association, left message for them to see if volunteer attorneys can get back to me. Have received nothing.
Have you tried in the Seattle area?
I've tried a couple in the Seattle area, but they said since they don't do the guardianship type thing, and it's like, how do you not do guardianship of minor?
Well, you know what, you got to call the right type of attorney, right? So you don't want to call go to a
Yeah.
heart surgery, go for heart surgery with a podiatrist. So you got to get the right type of lawyer. You want to get somebody that practices in that area, probate or guardianship, in your state. And I would use Google to try to find that person. Maybe probate attorney, Spokane, Washington. Google that term. You're looking at me like you already did that. No?
Yeah, I've done
No.
that too, but I talked to a couple of them, and they go, "Oh, we don't do minor guardianship." I'm like, "How do you not?" It's like the family laws say they don't do it because I'm like, but it's part of family law now. Okay, going to the
Well,
court facilitator.
oh,
Okay,
really? Because
yeah,
in California, it's different. I mean, a probate is a probate. It's not family law. There's two different, parts of the court.
but yeah, so it's like, and then you talk to a probate attorney, and they go, "Oh, we don't do the guardianship of minor since it used to be non-parental custody." I'm like, "Well,
Hmm.
then who does?" So it's like they're all still learning this aspect up here since it changed over in 21.
Uh-huh.
So it's like you had 2 years to figure this stuff out, people, and I'm figuring out this stuff by just doing research.
Well, it's
That's
taking you a
bad.
while, though.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the House bills, I printed out the thing on the guardianship uh, of a minor thing. I got that all printed out. We're looking through it on how to fill out half this paperwork, and you know, so yeah.
Kind of like, what should I say?
It's
It's
like going to
all
law school without going to law school.
right. I'm just looking at some of the comments to delete a comment there from Facebook as being inappropriate. So, are there any questions that you want to ask me today that I can help you with?
Um, well, most of the questions I have, you know, is one is that besides trying to locate an attorney up here, which is hopefully I can find, um, but the question is from the paperwork that I'm filling out, um, if I show you one of them, am I filling it out right? Is one question. I
I
think
don't,
you went.
I don't want you to show me any paperwork that might have somebody's name on it.
It just has mine and my daughter's.
Okay, so it doesn't have your child's name or anybody else's name on it.
It has my daughter's name on top, but
Yeah. Don't show that to me.
okay.
Don't show that to me. Hey, David,
But yeah,
we've been joined by one of my co-hosts, Ms. Deidre Payne.
Hello, good morning.
hello.
Deidre's always in her car.
I actually just got off of my night shift from last night.
Well, wait a minute. When we talked last night on the show, you were at work.
Exactly. I was just starting, but I came out to do the show.
How many hours do you work every night?
I work usually 12 hours, but I only work a couple days a week. I do merchandising. So I go in overnight and do the work that I do when the stores are closed to the customers because it's easier that way.
When you say, I mean,
I work
which,
for multiple companies, but the main one I'm working for right now is Hallmark, you know, the greeting card type of company. So I go
you,
into different stores like Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Kohl's, Dollar Tree, and merchandise, basically put out all of our product in the stores.
oh, I see. Interesting.
Mhm. So I
Interesting.
kind of do my own scheduling if that kind of makes sense, meaning, you know, I can put as many stores into a day that makes sense for my schedule for the week. So yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, merchandising, inventory, all that stuff. I used to merchandise, count product at Amazon. They screwed up my shoulder.
Oh, that's no good.
So I don't know, Deidre, if you've been hearing, but David did an open adoption years ago, and the people that adopted the maternal grandparents apparently have turned the child back in because as a teenager, the child is having some acting out problems. So he's trying to figure out how to get custody back. And one of the things that he's strategized is that he is going to file guardianship to try to get his child back.
Isn't his child old enough though to testify where she wants to live?
Yeah. The problem is there has to be a court hearing.
Oh,
You just don't say, hey, judge, I want to live
yeah,
with my dad, right? There has to be
exactly.
some court hearing. And the interesting thing enough, David, I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but have you ever been given notice of the CPS case? But I just answered my question. You wouldn't be given notice because you're not even the parent of the child. So they wouldn't even consider you a relative. So that's why you're not getting notice. I just thought of that.
See, my other family members are, but yet they don't like when court. They're not given notice on court hearings or this or that, but they were given notice when she was removed from my ex-in-laws. That's the only notice they've ever had.
Do you and the ex-in-laws get along?
We don't even talk.
Okay. Because unfortunately, they might they might have a wealth of information that you may want to get, right?
Well, I have actually. My ex-mother-in-law used to blog about a lot of the raising of Selena. Okay,
She used to
so
what?
blog,
Oh, really?
blog about it. Yeah, on a site called Whispering something. Anyway, I've downloaded everything that I could from her Twitter that went into that account, that Whispering Whispers or something, and read everything from the adoption day to diagnosis of autism with my daughter, a diagnosis of OCD on my daughter, her fits that she had, and this and that. So I mean, I got it all downloaded, and I've read all of that I can download.
Have you had a relationship with your daughter at all since she was adopted?
Well, once the open adoption went through, my before that I was talking to my daughter, and then after the open adoption went through, my ex-in-laws cut off all communication with me.
How old was she?
At the time, she was 5 when she got adopted. 7 when she got adopted, almost 8. Um, and she's 16 now. So I mean, and they lost her when lost her the first time to foster care, and when after she turned 13 because they said they couldn't handle her anymore. Which in the whole stipulation, and when we did the open adoption, and with my ex-wife and her caseworker at the time on her CPS case with her boys, or her one son, um, and her attorney present. Um,
Would
even
it
though
be
her
okay to ask the reason why you did the adoption?
well, at the time I was going between jobs and between jobs and then living with my biological mother, my birth mom, and her house not quite safe, let alone um, the way my biological mother is. Even to this day, she still just lays around in bed and won't be a helper of nothing. So, um, and then my ex-wife, she had pretty much she was dealing with CPS on her son that she had with her husband at the time. They've since divorced, so I mean, so it's like that was a whole case that I was almost drawn into that CPS case. It's like, well, that child ain't even mine. I was considered the legal father because the mother and I were still married, even though I was not the biological father of the boy. So yeah,
Mr. Davis, what does he mean by when someone says an open adoption? Does that mean that technically he can still like be in the child's life?
yes, I'm
Yes.
supposed to be able to have visitations and everything else.
Oh, okay.
And my ex-mother-in-law lied to me straight to my face over the phone with here's the CPS worker and attorney present.
So it really wasn't an open adoption then at the end of the day, is what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Oh,
In California, if they do an open adoption, it's very difficult to legally enforce that. As a matter of fact, in a lot of instances, you can't legally enforce it, even if they made a promise that you would be able to see the child.
like that post-adoption agreement that they try and fool you with, in CPS cases, where you
Right.
told me firsthand that is not even, what did you say? Basically, in court, it doesn't even hold any
Yeah.
kind of.
Right. It's not legally enforceable.
And here I went through so much with this mediator and going back and forth of what we all wanted to agree upon for possible visitation, and to know all of that was basically just blowing smoke up my butt, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Wasn't the first time, I'm sure. Won't
Yeah.
be the last. Won't be the last. But,
But
that's
yeah,
the way
see,
the world turns.
and then my family members, two of my family members, their children were open adopted, and they have my older brother Jordan, and his son was open adopted by the same family that open adopted my niece Hazel, okay, which they changed her name to Grace. Anyway, they get to see their kids and since they're young. Okay, they've got pictures, they have visitations, everything with these, And my ex-in-laws, when they said that nothing would change after the third custody went to open adoption, it's like
So just because your daughter was being a teen and kind of acting out, they basically
oh,
just got rid of her?
Pretty much.
And then the mom never stepped in either, the biological mother?
Well, my ex-wife has bipolar,
Oh.
and her choice of men right now isn't all that great. The guy she's currently dating is a level 2 offender. So, so yeah.
Would
But
he
she's
ever be able to get any kind of rights back? Or no, once you give up the child for adoption, that's it, Mr. Davis?
Depending on the law in Washington, if he was here in California, he would be able to. It's kind of a long kind of process.
In Washington State, juvenile can petition the courts to reinstate parental rights.
They can.
Yes.
Oh, have you done that?
I've got paperwork printed out for Selena if I can ever figure out where she's at.
Okay,
and I told her.
Wait. Why do you need to know where she's at to file paperwork?
What I'm saying is she has the power to reinstate my rights. Juvenile has the power to reinstatement of parental rights. I can file guardianship papers to get her, because I listened to a webinar the other day that CPS was held like 6 months ago, and that one of their cases, the biological parent got the child back through guardianship, and then after that, the child reinstated the parents' rights.
Several months ago, we had a woman from San Diego whose rights were terminated. 5 years passed by. She goes back to court, gets the child in her custody, and gets her rights reinstated. Not the usual thing, I might tell you, right? But it happens. What I think, all states should do is be able to let parents or family members file a petition to try to regain custody or set the adoption aside after, termination of rights. There's a lot of argument against that. That's just my own personal feeling. Because I think it would be best for the child, for the child to know and to help make decisions as that child gets older and develops, because you never know what's going to happen in an adoption. Just like, your case, grandparents get tired of her. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. Maybe I would have done the same thing if I were the grandparent. There's only so much, a grandparent can take from a teenager. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Or maybe, like you said, Mr. Davis, that funding all of a sudden disappears after a few years.
That's
I hate to
always,
say it.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right.
The promise of paying till 18, and then all of a sudden it cuts off, and they're now all of a sudden the kid's too bad and they don't want them.
That's an interesting point that you're making. I wonder what the answer is in this particular case. David doesn't know, I don't think, because he doesn't have contact
I don't know.
with the social worker.
Yeah, well, my aunt talked with the social worker. I haven't called to talk to the new social worker because she's newest on this case. But she talked to my aunt while I was there, listening to the phone conversation, and the old other family members can't get because after certain things, and it's like, yeah, quit blowing smoke at my aunt's ass or mine, because we know for a fact that with everything that's gone into effect now with House Bill 1227, wanting to make sure that families and family groups are a better option to keep, so that the child doesn't feel neglected.
David,
but the court system does neglect them.
David, I understand that new law in Washington, but it doesn't sound like it applies to your case, right? I mean, you guys are in the same world, but that particular law sounds like it would apply to current CPS cases that are open with kids regarding their placement. California has a similar law, but you have a unique situation, a unique factual situation and legally procedural situation. You're post-adoption, open adoption, and you're not the quote-unquote father of the child anymore. On paper, legally, as recognized by courts. Now, I can see the strategy of filing the legal guardianship petition. I can see that as being a viable strategy. The problem is that I talked to you like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I thought you were getting that stuff filed like ASAP, but you still haven't filed it. It's like, what's that slogan someone told me, or Nike says, just do it. You're taking aim, and you're aiming, and you're aiming, and you're aiming, and you're never going to fire. Just fire first and aim later. By the way, that's a new rule. That's rule number 4. How do you like that, Deidre?
But,
Oh man. But I think he kept saying, right, David, that you say that you feel like you need to locate her first in order for you to file the guardianship papers.
Well, she has to be served too. Um, to her being 16.
But like,
So
let's say if you
yeah.
filed it at the court, wouldn't they be then kind of forced to find her to then serve her,
Um,
or no?
well, according to we have to have a list of who all has to be served, and she's one that has to be served. And we have to. I mean, we could serve her through her caseworker, but likelihood of a caseworker giving her the court documents.
Hmm.
But you're worrying about something you haven't even taken the first step. File. File.
Everyone,
You know, here's some interesting things that you didn't know. Once you file a case and you tell the judge that you can't serve her because you don't know where she is, the judge can order her served through the county or the state. File first.
Okay.
Okay? Because if you file something, you have the right to go in and talk to the judge. If you don't file anything, you're nobody to the judge. You got to pay that. You got to file and pay that filing fee that every county likes to make, right?
Yeah, the filing fee in this case, if you're a relative or blood related, you do not have to pay.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
But would you
So,
still be considered a relative?
He's not
'cause
a relative.
I'm
He's not a relative, but he arguably he is blood related.
the biological father.
I know, but remember how Mr. Davis kind of said in a way, because you gave her up for adoption, you're not really considered a
Yeah.
relative anymore, but then it's your blood. So I don't know. That's hard. I don't know.
You know, it's one of those things that falls through the cracks. And when they made that law, they weren't thinking of this situation.
I guess.
But he has an argument. We'll only know when he goes to file it, and the clerk says, "I'm sorry, Mr. David, you got to pay the filing fee." You know, in California, they have something. They have a waiver of filing fees. As
Yeah,
Susie
that's it
told
up
you.
here.
Yeah, so you can apply to have a waiver of the filing fee.
So I could see that happening. You're considered a relative so that you have to pay, but then you're not considered a relative to where you don't have any say with the kid. It's all about the money. However, they can make the money work out for them,
How long have I been telling you that?
for everybody.
Yeah.
That's
But
why if
people,
they could only
people
reverse the funding, meaning,
yeah.
if they would reunite kids and then get all the incentives and the bonuses. Imagine how many kids would be going back home.
They would all go back home.
Exactly.
You know,
Meaning foster parents wouldn't even exist then, all the ones that are in it for the paycheck.
when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, he assembled the Hoover Commission, and that's what they suggested. They suggested to put the money on the incentives, financial incentives for the government on reuniting families,
Meaning that's what it's supposed to be.
not taking away families.
Exactly.
Guess what? That was probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Wasn't that long ago? No.
When was Schwarzenegger first governor?
He was governor back in.
I just turned
It was
40.
early
I don't think it was
2000s.
30 years ago.
It was early 2000s.
Okay, look, I
Oh,
just
okay. 20 years ago, maybe then.
he was governor 2003
Okay. Wow.
to 2011.
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago. About 20 years ago, the Hoover Commission suggested that. Sounded like a good idea to me.
That just would make too much sense.
Well, the whole economy. I think that people thought in government that they could make more money taking kids away, and as it turns out, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Nationwide, it's like probably more than $80 billion. The last time I looked it up, it was it's about 10 years ago. It was like 77 billion. Billion, not million, billion.
You know what I was thinking, Mr. Davis, as sick as this sounds, knowing how it all works with the funding, and like, let's say if someone wanted to kind of get really smart, but like sick in a way, in the fact of hypothetically having a parent having kids, having an anonymous call come in to where their kids are removed, having family members that are trying to play that role in the social worker's eyes of, they're going to be on their side and not the biological parent's side, so that those kids get placed with them and then they get all that funding, all because of the money, if that makes sense. Do you think there's really ever any stories of that possibly going on just because they see how much money is involved, so to speak?
Well, the answer is yes. And it led to, during Clinton's administration, the development of a law that they called Protecting Kids or Safe Kids or something like that.
Um,
But the real reason for the law was to cut out grandma getting the funding until the kid turned 18. See, before, grandma, they would take the kids away from the parents,
uh,
right? But they would give it to grandma.
uh,
Grandma would raise the kids, but she'd get a check for each kid until the kid turned 18.
my scenario, meaning in a perfect world, if I got along with my mother,
Right.
meaning we could be making money together, if you know what I mean, just because of the money.
So then they said, well, we can't do that. If grandma's going to keep the kid, we might as well make her adopt the kid, and then take the funding away from her 2 or 3 years later. We're saving hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. But we're going to do it all under the auspices of protecting the child, the best interest for the child. Isn't it better for grandma to adopt the kid? Yeah, that's the ticket. That's the pitch. That's the sales line. It's better to give the kid a permanent home with grandma, being now the mother.
But then the legal guardian is where where I'm talking about how
Right. But you
the
know what?
difference.
For a long time after they changed the law, if you were a grandparent and you said, I want legal guardianship, you know what they would do? They would take the kid away from you, then find somebody to adopt them, because
That's what I
they,
was assuming. Yeah.
being,
Uh-huh.
being adopted was better than
Of
legal
course.
guardianship
Yeah.
as grandmother. No, it wasn't. It was just less money, right? So they would take the kid away from me. And for several years, that was sanctioned by our court system. Then they passed a law and said, okay, we can't do that to grandma, right? If she doesn't want to become the adoptive parent, we're going to let her become the legal guardian. We're just going to have to pay her. But you, as social worker, put those little screws to grandma and try to convince her, and if she thinks you're going to take away the kid, maybe she'll go for adoption. I still get grandparents today who tell me that the social worker has said straight out or has intimated that if she doesn't adopt the kid, they're going to take the kid away from her. That's
Wow.
now illegal. That's now illegal. And I always ask, hey, did she say this in writing? Did she say it in an
Yeah,
email
really.
or a text message? I think they've all been trained never to put that in writing, because it's
Yeah.
illegal now.
Yeah, it's like here in Washington, there's besides the House Bill 1747, House Bill 1227, or 1224.
David, you're lost in these bills.
House bills.
Get out of these laws, man. You're going down the wrong track.
Anyway,
Hey, look,
besides
well,
those being in play, there was a lawsuit over a case recently.
Remember what Mr. Davis says. Don't worry about filing any civil lawsuits until you get the
No,
child
I'm saying
home.
that there was
it
a
it
lawsuit that
doesn't matter what I said. David has gone on Google. And he is now a freaking expert. But I want to address this. The truth movement. Can we getting a petition for class action? Okay, the answer is no. Okay, that's not how class actions work. All right. If you want to Google something about how class actions work, Google that, because people told me, oh, let's bring a class action. Like,
Too much money.
what do you forget the money?
Mhm.
The Supreme Court over the years of the United States has limited what types of cases can come before the court as a class action. And fortunately or unfortunately, state court, our California court, follows the federal rules on class action, tends to follow them. So you know, in the old days, you could file a class action. It was like rock and roll. Not anymore. They cut that. They cut that shit back. Why? Why would they cut it back? Costing businesses and governments too much money. Come on. You know, we don't want to cost business money. We don't want to cost governments money. You know, let's just, you know, if the rights of some people get, you know, violated, what the hell? Life's tough, and then you die. Right? I mean, come on.
Oh man.
You know, many years ago, I was consulting on a case in Tennessee. You wouldn't believe how restrictive Tennessee is on people trying to sue somebody. It's like you're like a demon if you bring a lawsuit. No, in
Isn't that
Tennessee,
where Connie regularly is from? Tennessee?
you know, that's where Connie is from. And I don't see any state, I don't see Connie getting in that type of trouble in any state except for someplace like Tennessee.
Yeah.
If Connie were in California doing that, she'd be a freaking hero, right? With politicians too. So, do you know whatever happened? I know that there were some changes. Maybe she went on appeal.
Oh, well, I think she was still waiting to hear back from the appeal on it. I think that's the last I remember hearing.
Yeah, you know, we have a host who does a show called CPS The Horror Stories, Cynthia Becker, but Becker is not her name anymore. She got married, I think, this year. But Cynthia has Connie on her show.
Something like that.
Connie on her show occasionally. So if you ever have a chance to watch her show or post a
She's
question.
a firecracker, man.
Yeah.
She and Michael from New York. Oh Lordy. Wow. Is Connie going to be one of the speakers on the August 5th?
You know, I don't know. I should have Cynthia contact her and invite her to come on. You know, I think I'm going to do that. Let me type a message to Grace now. Grace, I hope you heard that. Have Cynthia.
Yeah, I've been watching that show too here and there.
Connie,
it's interesting.
For August.
She has on I think once a week too her therapist that was actually her therapist during her CPS case that comes on her show once a week, and he always gives such good valuable information as well coming from his end, because I think he was working for CPS for a while there, and then even now he does his own private practice. But some of the things that he talks about from coming from that avenue is just wow too.
Who has a therapist on their show?
Cynthia.
Oh, great. Great.
That was her therapist during her CPS case.
Do you remember the therapist's name?
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. He was just on her show, I think, yesterday. He's a licensed, you know, marriage, family, whatever that stands for, but he also was working for CPS. He lives out in Riverside, and I think has his own private practice now, but she has him on once a week, and he usually will be on with her with a guest and give the side of, you know, the therapist's view on a lot of things. And sometimes what he says, you know, you just don't really look at it that way because you just don't have his background, but it kind of makes you think of things in a different light as far as, you know, that avenue, I guess.
Grace just sent me a message. The therapist's name is Gary Ray.
Yes. Yeah, that's him.
Very good. Very good. Okay, you know, we're coming to the end of the show today. I want to thank you, David Weisenhunt, for being on the show and sharing your experiences. I appreciate you coming on. And Deirdre, thank you for coming on last minute and being co-host.
David, go do it now. Just like you said, just do it.
Fire first, aim later. Hey, tomorrow we're going to be on at 9 a.m. again, Pacific Standard Time. So I'll see everyone tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have a good Saturday. Bye-bye.
Bye.